Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are in the world. I'm Jim Beck, and I'd like to welcome you to our virtual membership meeting and plenary session. Serving as your American Thoracic Society president during the 2019-2020 year has been a highlight of my professional life. Your executive committee has been engaged and cohesive, helping to move ATS forward under challenging circumstances. Our board of directors, assembly leadership, and committee leadership remains committed to advancing our mission. I can't thank the amazing ATS staff enough as they have pivoted from our international conference to providing an amazing amount of COVID-19 programming for our members. As I reflect on my time as ATS president, the unprecedented moment in which we find ourselves threatens to overshadow the rest of the year. I'm immensely proud of and inspired by the response of our society in the last weeks as we have risen to the challenge of COVID-19. Thank you again to all our members for your tireless work. Even as our focus is rightfully on COVID-19, let's also acknowledge all the important society accomplishments over the course of the past year, many of which directly supported our ability to respond to this pandemic. And while today's format may be a bit different from our traditional conference opening ceremony, our mission is unchanged: to improve health worldwide by advancing research, clinical care, and public health in respiratory disease, critical illness, and sleep disorders. Let's begin by reviewing our strategic framework, which we implemented recently to help focus the pursuit of our core mission. Why did we do this, and why now? The simple fact is that the world in which ATS operates is changing in every respect, and not just because of COVID. Our members' needs and expectations for the society are not the same as when I joined in 1987. The clinical, educational, and research environments in which our members work are vastly different. The regulatory and compliance environments grow more complex by the year, and many of these changes make it more challenging to focus on the patients we all ultimately strive to serve. All these factors create a powerful incentive for us to constantly evaluate our programs and offerings, to identify opportunities to improve, and to strengthen our overall value of membership and partnership. If we are going to truly fulfill our mission to help the world breathe, it is imperative that we remain best in class in the fields of pulmonary, critical care, and sleep medicine. And our strategic framework focuses our efforts to achieve these goals. The key pillars of the framework include advancing research and careers by stimulating development and dissemination of basic, translational, and clinical knowledge, advancing clinical care by translating new discoveries into clinical care, advancing public health by advocating for policies that will improve respiratory health and patient care, and finally, by evolving the organization to maximize the opportunities for engagement of our members. So how are we doing? Let's see. First, in the advanced research and careers domain, we include our conference, journals, and fundraising to support the research program. For the first time in our 116-year history, the COVID pandemic forced us to cancel our face-to-face conference. In its place, however, we are working to bring you much of the same content in an online environment, ATS 2020 Virtual, which will be available later this summer. Our 3 journals, which are wholly owned and operated by our society, remain leaders in their respective fields. And of course, Wisha Vedzicha, the Blue Journal editor, and Paul Schumacher, the Red Journal editor, are both working incredibly hard to increase their journal's impact factors, as well as publish the highest quality content. We also have a new editor-in-chief for Annals ATS, Colin Cook, who has already started to implement many terrific new ideas. I'm very proud of the recent launch of ATS Scholar with Nitin Seam as the editor-in-chief. This is our peer-reviewed, open-access, education-themed journal. It focuses on medical education, clinical education, education research, quality improvement, and more. Next, let's review our outstanding ATS research program. This past funding cycle, we awarded 25 research grants, 17 unrestricted grants, 7 partner grants, and 1 MECOR grant, totaling $1.255 million. This past December, the Board of Directors voted unanimously to unify the operations of the Foundation and the ATS. This merger will improve efficiencies and amplify our fundraising abilities by more directly tapping into the resources of the ATS. That transition is now complete. Members of the former Board of Trustees now serve on a new Funds for the Future committee within the existing ATS committee structure. All funds donated to support research will continue to be used as intended. For the past 15 years, our research program has been supported through the ATS Foundation and the generous contributions of our members, individuals, academic institutions, and industry. Many of you are viewing today. Thank you for your contributions. Next, in the advanced clinical care category, we include education, guidelines, and clinical care. In the education space, we continue to diversify our product portfolio, offering more resources to help members keep abreast of the latest developments in their field, while also maintaining their professional status. We are continuing to grow our chapters program, with 27 now on board and another 4 being formed. Our current chapters are shown here in blue, with the new chapters in green. We are also working much more closely with our peer societies to offer jointly sponsored and organized educational activities. For example, for the first time in 2021, we plan to hold a joint meeting with CHEST and the Canadian Thoracic Society, focusing on severe asthma. In the patient education space this past year, we published 60 patient information fact sheets in our journals or online, with many in Spanish and in other languages. And the Public Advisory Roundtable continues to be an incredibly important resource for us, providing the patient perspective on many ATS activities. We're so grateful of our strong partnership with these wonderful organizations and individuals. Guidelines continue to be a crucial area of work for us. In 2019 alone, we completed 20 official documents, including 8 guidelines, and both represent record highs for ATS. We continue our close association with the American Board of Medical Specialties, the American Board of Internal Medicine, and the American Board of Pediatrics to ensure that all those who need it maintain their professional certifications can do so through ATS. Over the past 3 months, ATS has provided a wealth of resources to help our members and the healthcare community at large to address the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. These activities include publishing groundbreaking research in our journals, guidance documents, webinars, podcasts, advocacy initiatives, newsletters, fact sheets, and Twitter chats. Our members and staff have rallied in truly amazing fashion to address the pandemic. Our third area of focus, advanced public health, includes global health and advocacy. We are very active internationally through our global health programs, such as the Methods and Epidemiologic, Clinical and Operations Research Program, or MECOR. With the uncertain international travel horizon, more of this instruction will occur via interactive distance learning. We also collaborate with our peer societies closely for meetings to guidelines to advocacies. In my opinion, our relationship with these societies has never been better. The Forum of International Respiratory Societies, made up of the 7 international societies, is completing a new round of strategic planning with a focus on policy at the World Health Organization. Advocacy in the U.S. remains a key focus of society activities. Our Washington office works tirelessly on many critical issues, such as increasing federal research funding and improving patient access to care and clean air. Tobacco use, e-cigarettes, and vaping are also key priorities. Clearly, COVID-19 has been an area of major interest in 2020. Also, our board of directors took a strong position on gun violence, and I'm very proud of that. Relationship building on Capitol Hill at the NIH, CDC, and other federal agencies is more important than ever and will remain a cornerstone of our efforts. Our close relationships with the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute and the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Disease, among others, continues to strengthen. Finally, we are committed to evolving the organization in order to ensure that ATS remains at the forefront in advancing research, clinical care, and public health in respiratory disease, critical illness, and sleep disorders. To that end, we are in the midst of making a number of significant improvements to our financial, communications, and technical infrastructure, all with the aim of making ATS more transparent, impactful, and nimble. The fact that we're able to offer conference programming online this year is testament to our commitment to offering new technology solutions to our membership. A task force on ATS governance, chaired by former ATS President Randy Curtis, is completing its work, and we look forward to their recommendations. Similarly, an ATS task force on international activities, chaired by former ATS President Tom Martin, will be reporting later in 2020. The ATS is passionately devoted to improving diversity and inclusion in our society. Multiple studies have conclusively demonstrated that diversity is vital to success. With that in mind, in December of 2018, the Board of Directors approved the ATS Diversity and Inclusion Policy. This action ensures that the society fully represents everyone. In fact, ATS has a strong record of promoting diversity among our membership and at the conference. For example, we started our Women's Forum in 1993 and the Diversity Forum in 1994. Among our interest groups at ATS is the LGBTQ and Allies interest group, and in the Women in Pulmonary Critical Care Medicine group. We have also made significant strides to increase the diversity of our committee leadership. We now have 14 female and 13 male chairs, and 11 female and 16 male vice chairs. There are 4 underrepresented minority members who serve as chairs or vice chairs. I hope you will all agree that the ATS is working hard to pursue the 4 pillars of our strategic framework. The key area of focus may change from year to year, but the overall strategy will not, and that will help us successfully pursue our mission for years to come. At this time, I would like to thank the incredible selfless involvement of our members. It's been so gratifying this year to reach out to so many of you, often on short notice, and to experience your dedication to ATS firsthand. I also want to acknowledge the superb dedication, professionalism, and productivity of our staff. Finally, thank you to our numerous partners in academia, industry, and peer societies, and our future is just as bright, if not more promising, than our past. And with that, I would now like to recognize the latest class of ATS Fellows. The ATS Fellow designation is a mark of distinction, conferring recognition on members for their accomplishments over several years, as well as their dedication and contributions to the society and to the fields of pulmonary critical care and sleep medicine. These individuals will join an enlarging group that is proud to place the letters ATSF after their names. Thank you all for your tremendous contribution to the ATS, to the fields of pulmonary critical care and sleep medicine, and most importantly, to your patients. At this time, I would like to make note that the recipients of the 2020 Respiratory Health Awards will be recognized later this summer during ATS 2020 Virtual. As you can see, we have a distinguished group of recipients this year. Dr. Richard Boucher is the year's recipient of the J. Burns Anderson Lecture. The Edward Livingston Trudeau Medal is awarded to Dr. Peter Barnes. Drs. John Balms and Ann Dixon are recipients of Distinguished Achievement Awards. Dr. Mary Rice is the recipient of the Joe Ray Wright Award for Outstanding Science. Dr. Diane Gold is the recipient of the World Lung Health Award, and the Public Service Award is awarded to Dr. Janice Nolan, who sadly passed away last month, but she knew she had received this award. She will be sorely missed by all. I'm very pleased that this year we have 4 recipients of the Recognition Award for Scientific Accomplishments: Dr. Janet Lee, Dr. Patty Lee, Dr. Julian Salve, and Dr. Jason Yuan. Dr. Preston Campbell is the recipient of the Research Innovation and Translation Achievement Award. Dr. Patricia Critic is the recipient of the Outstanding Educator Award. And Dr. Richard Simon is the recipient of the Outstanding Clinician Award. Finally, we will also be recognizing Dr. Jerry Torino with a very well-deserved Lifetime Achievement Award. Congratulations to all of this year's recipients. They all have made important contributions in the fields of pulmonary critical care and sleep medicine. We will now transition to the portion of the program including installation of the officers for 2020-2021. I call for the report of the nominating committee, and I ask Dean Shepard, chairman of this committee, to make his remarks.
So I'm really thrilled to be able to address the membership. Even though this is in virtual form, at least we're able to do this. And I want to report on the ATS nominating committee's outcome from this year. So the nominating committee met in January, and we nominated two really outstanding candidates to stand for election as Secretary Treasurer, Dr. Patricia Rivera and Dr. Zia Boric. The election was held, and the new Secretary Treasurer elected by the membership for 2020-2021 is Dr. Patricia Rivera. The nominating committee also reviewed the performance of the sitting officers and now presents the following slate of officers for election to serve for 2020-2021. And hopefully we'll actually get to see all of these officers in person at the 2021 meeting. So the officers are, for President, Juan Celedón, President-elect, Lynn Schnapp, immediate past President, Jim Beck, Vice President, Greg Downey, and Secretary-Treasurer, Patricia Rivera. So Dr. Beck, I move the election of this slate as presented.
The proposed slate of officers was approved by those members of the Society who are participating in this afternoon's session. Therefore, the officers are elected to serve for 2020-2021. Thank you, Dr. Shepard, and congratulations, Dr. Rivera. Now it's my great honor to thank the outgoing past president, Polly Parsons, for her service to ATS. In the 5 years that Polly has served on the executive committee, we have seen the Society grow and prosper. I've relied on her wisdom, judgment, and advice more than you can know. We've known each other for a very long time as friends, but serving with her on ATS has really been a privilege. As we've traveled the world together, we've had the opportunity to learn about different cultures, different health systems, and most importantly, different food. We specialize in street markets and food tours. Polly and her husband, Jim, have been wonderful travel buddies to Robert and me. We're looking forward, when COVID remits, to enjoying their lake house in Vermont for some lazy afternoons and great companionship. Polly, thank you so much for all you've done for ATS. At this time, I'd like to have a moment of silence for each of us to remember those colleagues and friends we have lost over the past year. I will take the President's prerogative to note the passing of my mentor and friend, John Murray, a former ATS president. John was a giant in our field and unfortunately passed away from complications of coronavirus in Paris recently. We will miss him. To conclude my tenure as president, I'd like to share some thoughts about my past year as president of the American Thoracic Society. No one leads alone, particularly during times like these, so I want to be sure to express my gratitude. As I mentioned earlier, serving as your president this year has been one of the great highlights of my professional life. A large part of that enjoyment has been serving with a dedicated group of officers. The 5-year term means that someone is new each year, and yet we've managed to build on one another's strengths. To my fellow officers, past and present, thank you for making me a better leader. The ATS Board of Directors has been, to put it simply, outstanding. Over the last few years, we've restructured the board meetings to be more participatory and interactive. Thanks for engaging with us and for sharing your expertise and wisdom to make ATS better. We would not be gathering virtually today, or indeed would not be talking about any of the accomplishments I've shared with you without our wonderful staff. You guys rock. For the last several years, the Executive Committee has worked hard to strengthen our relationship with peer societies around the world. This has been a lot of hard work, but also a tremendous amount of fun. I feel fortunate to have formed lasting personal friendships with many leaders around the world, and these friendships will continue after my service on the Executive Committee. And of course, Karen Collishaw, our Executive Director, has been wonderful to work with. She is a kind, caring, and devoted leader, and I'm so glad that she came to ATS. Karen, I enjoy every interaction with you, and you've become a treasured friend. I really could have not done any of this without the love and support of my wonderful husband, Robert McGranahan. The ATS travel is a lot of fun, but it can be arduous, and Robert is always supportive when I've been away from home, and it's even better when he gets to come along. For nearly 38 years together, our relationship just keeps getting stronger. For those of you who know him, you know what a special person he is. Finally, as I wrap up my remarks, I would just like to say to the entire membership of the ATS, that it has been my pleasure and privilege to serve as the ATS president this past year. I have worked with a wonderful group of colleagues on the executive committee, and I know Juan will do a tremendous job as president. You'll be hearing from him in a few moments. We have faced many challenges together in the past 12 months, and I have never been prouder of my colleagues throughout the respiratory community and of the ATS. Thank you for your confidence, your trust, and for allowing me to serve. For my final act as president, it's a great honor to recognize those individuals who have gone above and beyond in their services to ATS during the 2019-2020 year. Among our members, I'm very thankful to Deborah M. Boyer for her outstanding leadership of the ATS Education Committee, Dean E. Schroffnagel for his unwavering commitment and leadership of the ATS Foundation and of the Forum of International Respiratory Societies, Dean Shepard for his superb leadership of the ATS Nominating Committee, Deborah Shore for her longstanding leadership as course director of the ATS Fellows Track Symposium, J. Randall Curtis for his outstanding leadership of the ATS Task Force on Governance, and Alan L. Plummer for unwavering commitment and service to the ATS during his tenure as the American Medical Association Specialty Society RVS Update Committee representative. The ATS staff are so important for everything we accomplish, as you've heard me mention. We had a very hard time selecting individuals out of this wonderful group to receive recognition this year. I'd like to recognize Emily Catanzaro for her significant contributions to the ongoing success of the ATS International Conference, Ali C. Felix and Melinda Garcia for their significant contributions to the ongoing success of the Funds for the Future program, Fei Ling for her significant contributions in peer review, oversight, and other initiatives to support the continuous success of our ATS journals. And last but not least, Lauren G. Lynch for her significant contributions to the ongoing success of ATS educational activities. Thank you all for your tireless dedication to the ATS. And now it gives me great pleasure to hand over the presidential gavel, virtually of course, and I have it right here, to my good friend Juan Celedón. I didn't know Juan as well as I knew the other members of the executive committee when he was elected, but I am so glad that we've had the opportunity to get to know each other, and I've really enjoyed getting to know Juan's wife Lily and their wonderful daughters. Juan is going to tell you more about himself in a few moments, but I'd like to tell you that he's an individual who cares deeply about social justice and about diversity and inclusion. His international perspective adds depth to our executive committee discussions, and I'd even say that he's gotten my Spanish marginally better, although he may tend to disagree with that statement. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to introduce Juan's incoming presidential remarks. Juan, you'll be a fantastic president for our society, and I'm handing the leadership of ATS over to you. Thank you all for allowing me to serve, and stay well.
Thanks, Jim, for the gavel and your kind remarks. I can attest that as a friend, Jim will literally give you the shirt off his bag. I traveled to Hanoi last fall for the APSR meeting, and my suitcase didn't arrive. I had to attend the opening ceremony later that day and had no clean shirts. Jim, of course, lent me a perfectly ironed shirt and everything was fine. On a more serious note, I will always remember how welcome Jim made me feel when I joined the executive committee, and his patience and guidance as I learned the ropes. Some people pretend to listen. I always felt that Jim did, and that he always considered the facts and other people's opinions before making thoughtful decisions in the best interests of the ATS. Jim, the ATS will recognize your outstanding service as our president with a plaque. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to serve with you. Thanks for your friendship and support, and I will, of course, be soliciting your wise counsel over the next year. Thanks again to everybody for attending this virtual ceremony. My name is Juan Carlos Celedón, and I'm honored to serve as the ATS president. In times of the Roman Empire, victorious general would parade through the streets of Rome in a chariot with two servants, one to hold his laurels and another to whisper in his ear from time to time that all glory is fleeting. My parents taught me at an early age that special ceremonies are an occasion to thank those who made your journey possible. I intend to do that over the next 18 minutes while also telling you about our plans for next year. In the words of Forrest Gump's mother, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. I'm from Barranquilla, which with 2.2 million residents is the largest city on the Caribbean coast of Colombia. About 22% of the Colombian population lives in the Caribbean region, which has a distinct dialect, music, and culture. Notable people from that area include Shakira and Gabriel Garcia Marquez, the Nobel Prize winner for literature in 1982. The last Caribbean person to be elected president of Colombia was in 1886, or 134 years ago. I'm the youngest of 5 children, and my sister, Luz Marina, or Sea Light in English, was an executive at Amway Company in Michigan. Our plans were for me to attend my last year of high school in Grand Rapids and then go to college in the US. Unfortunately, when I was a junior in high school, my sister had a car accident and died, the first event that truly changed my life. For instead of coming to the US, I went to Bogota, the capital of Colombia, where I was one of 4 Caribbean students in a class of 84 people. The Pontificia Universidad Javeriana was founded in 1623 and is the 3rd oldest university in the Americas. I'm very proud of my alma mater, where I received an outstanding education, had great classmates, and made lifelong friends. This said, there were faculty and attendings from the Colombian interior or the Andean regions that were deeply prejudiced and made disparaging remarks about Caribbean people. As a student, I had no recourse against that, but to remain silent and concentrate on my studies. Since I wanted to do research, I sent over 400 letters of application to residency programs in the US, receiving 7 interviews. One of those interviews was at Lincoln Hospital in the South Bronx. The cabbie that took me from Manhattan to my interview at Lincoln was a Dominican man. After a little while, he looked at me and said, "Why are you going to the Bronx? You look like a nice kid." I told him that I was a foreign medical graduate and Lincoln was one of very few places that would give me an interview. He looked at me again, paused, and said, "The whites are sending you there to die." And of course, I ended up serving my internship in internal medicine at Lincoln Hospital. The South Bronx is the poorest congressional district in the US and one of the most segregated places on earth. In 1 year, I saw 4 white patients. Mostly everybody else was Dominican, Black, or Puerto Rican. Amidst the current COVID-19 pandemic, it is easy to forget about the AIDS epidemic. When I was an intern, there was no effective treatment for AIDS, and 25 to 30% of my patients had this disease. I still vividly remember having patients with a second episode of pneumocystis pneumonia being sent out of the ICU on a ventilator to wait for a certain death in the medical floors. I also remember the asthma room in the emergency department, where minority patients with no follow-up would constantly go to get nebulizers, steroids, and sometimes be admitted. The why became the question that later fueled my research career. Stephen Peterson, an outstanding internist and my residency program director, then supported my desire to move to another program to have a better chance to an academic career. I then served the last 2 years of my residency in internal medicine at Beth Israel Medical Center. My first day as a junior resident, I inherited 48 patients and admitted 12. By the end of my first call, I was caring for 60 patients with 2 interns, one of whom later quit and became a child psychiatrist. A true story. While at Beth Israel, I met Mark Rosen, rest in peace, who helped me get into a fellowship in pulmonary and critical care medicine at Brown University, where I work with quite a few ATS members, including 2 former presidents in Nick Hill and Sharon Rounds. Sharon has been an unwavering supporter of my career and a lifelong friend. By my senior year of fellowship, I had to again send over 400 letters of application to multiple institutions and agencies in the US to be able to obtain permanent residence. This time, I received 1 interview and ended up serving as an attending for 2 years at the Erie VA Medical Center in Erie, Pennsylvania. After that service, I then moved on to become a research fellow at the Channing Laboratory of Brigham and Women's Hospital and Harvard Medical School. The Channing Lab was a true land of giants in respiratory medicine. Frank Spicer, a recipient of several ATS awards, was the lab director during my fellowship. One of Frank's first fellows was John Sammut, a Trudeau medalist who had long departed by the time I started as a fellow. However, John has been a lifelong mentor, role model, and friend. My primary mentors at the Channing Lab were Dr. Diane Gold, this year's recipient of the World Lung Health Award, from whom I learned asthma epidemiology, and Ed Silverman, a world leader in COPD genetics, who inspired me to pursue a doctorate in genetic epidemiology. My co-fellow was Gosli Tondra, the current chief of pediatric pulmonology at the University of Rochester and a close friend. In August of 1999, I was on a plane to Costa Rica to get preliminary data for my K-grant application to the NIH. While on the plane, I learned that my only brother, Enrique, had been assassinated in a mass murder-suicide committed by a deranged individual. And so instead of going to Costa Rica, I went to Colombia, where I arrived in time for my brother's funeral. I still remember my nephews, then 11 and 8 years old, hugging me as I arrived. You never forget, but you have to move forward. My nephews and their mother moved to Atlanta, and I was very fortunate to have Enrique and Andres spend part of their summers growing up with me in Boston. Since 2010, I've been blessed to lead the Division of Pediatric Pulmonary Medicine at Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh and the University of Pittsburgh. I'm very grateful and proud of the work that our faculty and staff do on a daily basis. To date, I've been fortunate to serve as primary or secondary mentor to 25 fellows. It's a wonderful group of people of whom I'm very proud. Pictured here are 14 recipients of K awards from the NIH, 8 R01 funded investigators, 4 division chiefs, and 3 elected members of the American Society for Clinical Investigation. I've also had great collaborators. For projects in Costa Rica, Drs. Manuel Soto Quiroz and Lydia Avila, and in Puerto Rico, Drs. Glorisa Canino and Edna Costa. My research funded by the NIH has been largely on the role of omics and environment on the pathogenesis of asthma, particularly in racial and ethnic minorities. Working with talented scholars has allowed me to author or co-author more than 300 publications, including over 220 original research reports. In parallel with my research, I've been able to contribute to key ATS initiatives on health equity. First, as one of the founding members of our Health Equality and Diversity Committee, and then as a member of our executive committee. In good times, your friends know you. In bad times, you know who your friends truly are. At a very difficult time in my professional life, 2 Trudeau medalists, Dr. Skip Garcia and Yashai Schneider, serve as generous advisors and friends, always pushing me to get to the high road. And for this, I'm most grateful. Now, there are other reasons I'm speaking to you today. First, my parents. My father, Enrique Celedón Manotas, was a physician. Dad was Don Quixote, man of La Mancha in a white coat, fighting against the giant windmills of sickness and social injustice. An unrepentant idealist and a romantic in a world full of cynicism. My mom, Nora Inasocio, is simply put the toughest, most resilient human being I've ever met. She lost her father at a young age and would go on to lose 2 of her children, but her faith never wavered. Mom gave me the greatest gift I've ever received, faith. Now, we cannot choose which parents we get. We cannot control that. Faced with the biggest decision of my life, I chose well when I married my wife, Lily. Through the years, you've never let me down. You've turned my life around. The sweetest days I found with you. Through the years, it's better every day. You've kissed my tears away. And as long as it's okay, I'll stay with you through the years. I cannot sing like Kenny Rogers, you see, but I still wanted to pay a small tribute to the one who for 28 years has given me a passage to heaven through her eyes. Together, we've raised 2 multilingual daughters, Laura and Carolina, our pride and joy. As a family, we've traveled from Peru to Vietnam. In the words of St. Paul, when everything seems lost, only faith, hope, and love remain. But the greatest of these is love. This family picture was taken after the wedding of my oldest nephew, Enrique. Picture here are my sister, Margarita, and my youngest nephew, Andres. Enrique and Andres have turned into fine young men and continue to be sources of inspiration and strength. Now I turn to my professional family, the American Thoracic Society. I've been a member of the ATS since I was a fellow. I'm humble and honored to be able to repay a bit of all I've received from this society as its next president. We have the best staff. They are hardworking, capable, knowledgeable. We could not do much without them. Get to know these people, for you'll truly enjoy it. I've been fortunate to serve with a great group of officers since I joined the executive committee, including Steve Crane and Karen Collishaw, and Drs. David Gozal, Mark Moss, Polly Parsons, Jim Beck, Lena Schnapp, and Greg Downey. We now welcome into this group Dr. Patricia Rivera. A special note of thanks to Dr. Polly Parsons. Polly, I've learned a ton from you, and our society has greatly benefited from your leadership. Thank you. As Jim showed, this is our strategic framework. We help the world breathe and do so by advancing research and young careers, clinical care, and public health. In so doing, the only constant thing is change. This society has truly evolved since it was created. This slide summarizes the executive committee plans for next year. First and foremost, we must continue to face the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Working with our sister societies worldwide, we'll do so by fostering a state-of-the-art patient care, research, education, and advocacy. The current pandemic has further exposed profound disparities in respiratory health in this country and around the world. We must continue to face this to the work of a diverse and inclusive community. I'm pleased to announce that this year the ATS, together with the Chess Foundation, will offer a new grant for $80,000 over 2 years for clinical research in underrepresented minority populations. This year, we'll be receiving reports of our task forces on international activities and governance. We will also be launching a new task force on the ATS International Conference. to ensure that we're serving our members in the best manner possible, wherever they are at every career stage. We will do so by also implementing cutting-edge technology advancements. We are very proud of our chapters, which will continue to grow and support. Finally, in an ever-changing environment for professional societies, we are constantly trying to diversify our sources of revenue by fostering new efforts in education and discovery. We are trying to bring new educational and networking opportunities to our members year-round. As defined by the US Census, Hispanics or Latinos have been in contemporary US territory since the 1500s. This society was founded in 1905, yet no Latino had ever served as its president. Today, a 115-year-old wait ends. When I first joined the executive committee, it was my fervent hope to encourage other minority members to aspire to lead this society. For having a pipeline is important, but a blocked pipeline doesn't do anybody any good. In the words of President Obama, it's important for young people to see others like them lead, for it gives them the audacity of hope. A mis hermanos y hermanas latinoamericanos, gracias por su apoyo y que Dios los bendiga. Pelos meus irmãos e irmãs no Brasil, obrigado por seu apoio, que Deus os abençoe. Over the last few weeks, I've been deeply moved by the skill, compassion, and commitment of our members. There are enormous challenges ahead, including the current pandemic. When facing such challenges as individuals, they seem insurmountable, and it's easy to despair. For each one of us is but a grain of sand in a vast desert, small and insignificant. Yet when thousands of grains of sand are moved by strong winds in unison, the desert landscape is forever changed. Each grain of sand is unique. There is no other like it. The greatest strength of this society is in our rich diversity. Diversity of expertise, areas of interest, demographics, and life experiences. Yet we are all moved by the same strong wind, a passion to serve patients afflicted with diseases encountering pulmonary, sleep, and critical care medicine. A pluribus unum. Out of many, one. Together, we can and shall overcome the current challenge of COVID-19. And someday, we'll eliminate unacceptable disparities in respiratory health and confine them to the history books where they belong. If so, may this society be blessed for 100 years to come. May God bless you all. I would now like to adjourn this plenary session. Muchas gracias a mi familia y amigos en Colombia y las Américas. Muito obrigado. Thank you very much.